molto suggestiva. Roger, you're ready?
Okay.
Okay. Okay. Roger.
Okay. Sorry. Thank you so much, Chairperson, the President. I want to appreciate the invitation from Confidustria for inviting me to come and share with me. I think this adds weight, adds more salt to the presentation, because I'm going to give you feedback as a person who is coming from a service delivery point, who receives funds, who received grants from Europe. And when we ask you for money and you send us money, what difference do we make? I know you are going to miss the pictures, because I was so confident that my presentation had arrived, but I think it's still in the air, in the internet, still coming. So, but no problem. We'll proceed, and I try to share in the 10 minutes what I can. But as I speak, I think the biggest difference we make when we give money to grant-seeking organizations like non-profits is the difference, the joy we give to the children, the joy we give to the women who are having problems in delivery, the joy we give to children to go to school through education program. And when you meet them after some time and he says either uncle or so and so, thank you so much for what you did to me, I think that's the greatest gift we can give, because people will be able to sleep, people will be able to smile. The smile, which is little, will be big. But also, it's like a feedback, like as I've said. But I'm also coming from a continent where half of the population, actually slightly more, are young people. 50% are below, let's say, 15 years, and you can imagine the demand, the pressure which is being put on the enterprises, on the non-profits which are providing money. But apart from the population being young, there is poverty. Poverty levels are very high. People who are living below $1 are very high. Again, also you see health, education, and education, health being challenged, because the less money you get from Europe, when you get financial destabilization in this area, that means also you are spending and saving and sending to Africa or to Asia will be less. That means the problem will continue to do what? Will continue to multiply. But thanks to the non-profits, because if government fails, our governments fail to provide, then who fills the gap? Many of our governments spends a lot of money trying to buy arms, trying to keep themselves in power. I'm sure you've heard of presidents who want to stay in power for 30 years. Like my country, our president has stayed for 30 years. But this is a common problem in Africa. They say the chair is sweet, so whoever sits there doesn't want to, he doesn't want to give up the chair. So they continue perpetuating their stay. Actually, the money which goes through NGOs for education, for health, for environment, for child and child protection and all these issues helps to fill the what? To fill the gaps. Helps to fill the gaps. So you hear non-profits really coming up and doing things. Previously, they were used to be religious, mainly supported by churches and religious organizations. But now you see non-denominational one coming up and actually increasing in number. They say those which are supported by churches are going down, but you see more of those which are supported by what? Which are supported by non-denominational entities. And non-profits have had a long influence, especially in the area of education. They are very good, the way they deliver the services. But also when you talk about health, this HIV/AIDS pandemic and all these other diseases and problems you are hearing from Africa, many of them actually programs and delivery, access in rural areas has been largely provided by NGOs. But of course, there is disasters and emergencies. You hear of other areas in civic participation, human rights work, child welfare. All these have really been areas which have been addressed. But also water. Water is a serious issue. Environment, civic participation, and cultural issues. All these are addressed by what? All these are addressed by Non-profits. Now, when we begin to talk of non-profits in Africa or other areas, there are four distinct areas. There are those which are really doing relief and welfare, providing services, providing goods, preventive and curative. There are those which, provide family short-term, for short-term support. But as time goes on, they develop into another second level where they are involved in community development. They begin to assist in water. They begin to assist in water. They begin to assist in, incomes. You begin to see them, spending time to help people to see that people can support themselves. Because the first group, which deals more in charity and relief, sometimes can create dependence where people are looking to NGOs to give them everything, and people don't want to what? Don't want to work, or they think money is going to come for school fees, money is going to come for their health. So you reach a second level where they begin teaching them to do self-help initiatives, which help to reduce their problems. Then after that, you go to a third level where you begin to see sustainable developments, where NGOs are contributing to national plans, to national programs, where NGOs are contributing to developmental issues with bigger areas instead of dealing with families, instead of dealing with local communities. And again, this helps a lot because it helps to balance development. It helps, to increase public involvement. The private sector gets involved, and you begin to see that things are beginning to change. In other words, the non-profit begin to act as a plays a catalytic role. Like you see, many of these will be like Avis. You begin to see them working in national plans, World Vision, Plan, SOS, yes, but not so much because they are new. But you begin to see other NGOs like Save the Children's Fund. Instead of focusing on individual, then they begin to focus on what? Begin to focus on bigger programs. Now, the other bigger group which we see when a non-profit has matured is when it becomes a people's movement. It becomes a people's movement, and it begins to involve people to move with people, and so that people can begin to ask for services. People can begin to demand for change. People can begin to see things happening in their community area. It becomes a massive movement of so many people, like you've seen with SOS, many employees, many staff, and the impact actually you can see you can see it. This makes a very big difference. Now, what is the potential? When you look at these non-profits, I've given you four categories. One can be two. One can do relief, service delivery, at the same time do community development. But also when you look at them, they don't do all needs. They do specific needs. Some want to concentrate in education. Some want to concentrate in health. Others, their interest is environment. They don't want to crisscross. So they tend to specialize. They tend to have certain different capacities in delivering the services. And of course, they provide goods, they provide services, they help to create differences, and all these contribute to the community. Now, the issue is, what is the impact of non-profit organization? I have heard the word impact comes up, but the impact varies. The impact varies from organization to organization, sometimes also depending on the amount of money and the technical staff. But they tend to be complex, they tend to be diversified. Some non-profits have a good reputations, others have a bad one. Sometimes they do short term. They should do short terms. But what we have seen that some of these non-profits, they go in rural areas and reach populations which otherwise would not be reached by government. Because you find the services sometimes are very far from the masses. You find the hospital can be 30 kilometers. You can find water, people walking long distance to fetch what? To fetch water. So all that vary. Now, are there challenges? Yes. Non-profit have many challenges. One of them is that sometimes they have problem with managerial and technical capacity. Sometimes they cannot adopt innovations. Some of the new innovations so that they can help people. Money dries up. Non-profits start good programs, money dries up, and they just leave the community, They abandon the community. Duplication of activities sometimes can come up, but also what we see is that some have weak accountability and also have a challenge with government. Sometimes when non-profit provide good services, government takes them as competitor. Sometimes they want to steal for them, they want to squeeze them out because they are speaking too much, because they are seen more in a better light than the government. So some governments are very bitter with NGOs because they provide very good service, and maybe sometimes they start to decampaign, and then where do we see many more NGOs? We see more funding of non-profit in education, in health, and also in child welfare. We see a lot of people, like the organization itself, which I was going to show you. We reach many younger people in urban cities. Like in a day, you can receive 1,500. The difference with us is that you people in Europe and in America, children are in school. In Africa, most students are out of what? Of school. So when you are designing programs and interventions, they will be out of school. So that's why you see a lot of support for vocational skills, support for youth centers, environment and community programs. In other words, sometimes it's even very difficult to reach some of these what? To reach some of these populations. Okay, so in conclusion, what do we see? In Africa, when we talk of non-profits have played a very important and critical role. And actually, we still need them. We are not seeing non-profit phasing out in the immediate future because of the work they do in terms of accessing services, in terms of even being flexible, lack of bureaucracy, and taking quick decisions and implementing. So governments in Africa or funders in Europe will need sometimes to channel their funding through non-profits, because when you give money to government, put it in the basket, sometimes you face the challenge where governments take advantage of that money and go to buy arms in order to keep themselves in what? To keep themselves in power. That's why some guys are staying longer. But if money goes through non-profit with multi levels of accountability, then you are likely to get a better investment and better returns. I appreciate. Thank you so much for inviting me. That's what I can share with you now.
Grazie Roger.